Welcome back. With us live over the phone is Dr. Adel Hamza, the tourism expert. Good morning, Mr. Hamza.
Good morning.
How are you doing, sir?
Very great. Thank you.
Our pleasure. What is the cultural and historical importance of the Greco-Roman Museum, you think?
Of course, there is a very big importance for this museum because this museum actually is considered one of the oldest museums in the world, not only in Egypt. The idea of establishing or building that museum started actually in 1891 when they were collecting and discovering the monuments and the pieces which related to the to the first century and from the third century BC till the third century BC and the third century AC. Actually, these pieces were there was no place to actually store these pieces or to keep these pieces. So they started to think about establishing a museum in that era during the time of Khidr Abbas Hilmi II. This museum is very important museum, of course, for this period of the history of Alexandria, which became now one of the touristic cities in Egypt, which is attracting a lot of tourists in Egypt.
Right. So to what extent does that museum help in preserving the cultural heritage of the city of Alexandria?
Exactly. And the history of Alexandria, as you said, started with Alexander the Great. Even 2 centuries or 3 centuries before Alexander the Great. And then started to build Alexandria as a the most modern city in that era. Of course, there were a lot of philosophers, a lot of scientists, a lot of everything came to this city looking for the new civilizations of the world in Alexandria. And of course, you will find a lot of discoveries until today, by the way. They discover a lot of monuments and a lot of pieces related to that era, even under the water. So keeping this history, preserving this history, recording that history, of course, in that time needed a museum. And that's why they established the Greco-Roman Museum, which is, as I said, one of the oldest museums in the world. Very interesting museum because it consists of a lot of holes, which is writing a history of that period. There is a hole especially for Alexander the Great. There is a hole especially for Cleopatra. There is a hole especially for Mark Antony. A hole especially for the philosophers who lived in that period. So it's really very important for the people who are seeking to know the civilization and the history of that period.
Right. Of course, Alexandria is one of the most charming cities, and it's a unique city in its own right because it's a Mecca for some other cultures other than Egyptians. As we all know, it has a history and a culture that dates back to years and years of Greeks and Romans who lived in Alexandria together with Egyptian citizens. It became like a multicultural background and history that distinguish it among other cities. Talk to us about the history of the Greeks and Romans who lived in Alexandria and how have they affected in diversifying the culture of Alexandria?
Of course, yes, as you said, this is very important what you said, because actually Alexandria is not just a normal city. Alexandria is a city which gathered all the people from all over the world. As you said, the Greek, the Romans, the Egyptian, and also the Persians, some Syrians, some Africans. You know, this city actually was very attractive city for the whole people who are around Egypt, because it's very close. You know, the location of the city itself give it the importance for all those people. The people who were looking for the science, they were going actually, or they intended to go to Alexandria. the people who are going or interested of culture, they go to Alexandria in that period. The people who were looking for trade and making money, they were interested to go to Alexandria. So Alexandria was actually or a center who are mixing all those people together. And the interesting and the nice thing that all those people who were looking for all these things, they were living in a peace. Really, was living in a peace, and they gather. And when you go, until today, by the way, when you go to Alexandria, you see the people of Alexandria, they are different. They are different than the people of all Egypt. They are looking like Italians, looking like Greeks, looking like Arabs, looking like Persians, very, very diversity. And even the monuments which was founded in Alexandria, which is exhibited in the Greco-Roman Museum, give you the indication of how the people of Alexandria were living. This is very important and very nice experience to any tourist to have in Alexandria, to go to the museum, to see the diversity of living in a city. You'll see everything there. You see monuments related to the pharaohs, related to the Arabs, the Greco-Roman period, Persian. So it's really very good experience. And the Egyptian government, actually, they are doing a great job in reopening this museum again and show to the people how was the people of Alexandria living, how was the life in Alexandria.
Right. One of the institutions or one of the sectors or places that truly exhibits this history and multicultural is Bibliotheca Alexandrina, and the Antiquities Museum that houses one of the most important collections of ancient and Greco-Roman antiquities. Talk to us about it. Elaborate over that.
Actually, as you said, it's not only this. That as I told you, there are actually like 9 halls in the museum. Every hall having a piece or having a subject to talk about. When you go to the hall of Alexander the Great, for example, you will see the history of Alexander the Great and the monuments of Alexander the Great, as he is Alexandrian, not from Europe or not from another city in Europe. You will see a lot of monuments related to that period. So the people who are looking for the history of Alexander the Great, they will find their target in this hall of the Greco-Roman Museum. When we talk about love and romance, you can visit the hall of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Then you will discover a lot of things besides the great, of course, performances which was done by Cleopatra. You will see how she was living and how she was loving Mark Antony and how was the love and romantic in the pictures or the pieces which is exhibited in that museum. When you go to the hall of the coins, for example, you will see how was the trade in that period was very advanced and very, very unique, because they invented the coins. They invented the coins, which is a lot of visual hall for the coins and for the trade and how they were trading between Egypt and Alexandria and all the other cities and countries around Alexandria, and exhibiting some of the products they used to buy and sell, like ivory, like gold, like a lot of things which is related to that period. When you go to the whole of the life of Alexandria or how the people in Alexandria were living, you will find a lot of knowledge and a lot of information which gives you a background about how Alexandria was very advanced in that period.
Right. Also, talking about Alexandria in its own sense, hosting that diversity of cultures, of nationalities, and especially the resemblance between the nature of Alexandria and Greek, for example, and even Italy. Whenever someone goes to Italy, they say the first impression is that it reminds us of Alexandria in Egypt. How have Alexandria impacted other cultures. I mean, the Roman culture, the Italian culture, for example, the Greek culture. We can see Alexandria in the cities of Greece, and we can see Alexandria also in Rome. So talk to us about that bond over years and years and years, and how have that revived Alexandria in the eyes of even the people who left Alexandria and went back to their original countries.
This is very, very smart question, by the way, and this is very nice of you to say that, because I'll tell you something, very nice thing. The people who thought about the Greco-Roman Museum, they were not Egyptians. They were not, a group of Italian businessmen who actually were convinced by the archaeologist, the Italian archaeologist Giuseppe Point, who convinced them to build the museum in 1891. And they financed the building of the museum, or they paid a lot of money to build this museum. So I can show you in this story how much those people from Italy, they liked the Egyptian, or they liked Alexandria, and how they were doing their efforts to keep the monuments and history of Alexandria. Even the Greeks, they were considered Alexandria as their second home, or not second home, their home. And until today, a lot of families from Greece living in Alexandria, a lot of families from Italy live in Alexandria until today.
Right. On that note, of course, Mr. Adel Hamza, you are a tourism expert. We'd like to thank you so much talking to us on The Breakfast Show. And by this, we come to the end of this edition of The Breakfast Show for today. Many thanks to all of you. Until we see you again tomorrow morning, that's a goodbye.